Right now, while American sports media is obsessively recycling the exact same storylines about familiar names, a massive seismic shift is happening right under their noses. Absolutely nobody is reporting it. Alex Eala is not just quietly climbing the 2026 rankings. She is ruthlessly tearing through them. She is completely redefining how a Southeast Asian player breaks down the elite defenses of the WTA Tour. The silence from major networks like ESPN and Tennis Channel is honestly deafening. You have to ask yourself a very serious question about this blackout. Are they simply missing the biggest tactical story of the year? Or is the top 30 staying completely quiet because they know exactly how dangerous her secret weapon really is? This breakdown will not tell you what you already see on weekend television broadcasts. We are going beyond the standard highlight reels. This is about why the entire top 30 is suddenly looking at her with absolute dread. To understand the sheer danger of Alex Eala right now, we first have to understand the systemic failure of Western tennis experts. When scouts first looked at her physical profile and her regional origin, they instantly placed her in a very restrictive box. They assumed she had a natural ceiling. They thought she would max out as a solid baseline grinder who simply fights hard and retrieves balls. That was their first fatal mistake. When you evaluate a tennis player based purely on lazy traditional stereotypes, you completely miss the invisible mechanics that actually win high-stakes matches. Eala is playing an entirely different game. Let us look at the sheer violence of her surge through the 2026 season. Players simply do not jump past seasoned, battle-tested veterans week after week by merely keeping the ball in play. You need a weapon to do that. You need something that makes your opponents deeply uncomfortable the moment they step onto the court. Yet, if you tune into the major broadcasts, you hear absolutely nothing about the specific tactical nightmare she presents. Pundits casually label her a nice rising star and immediately move on to their scheduled programming. They are treating an apex predator like a cute underdog story. This dismissive attitude is exactly what makes her so incredibly lethal right now. Eala is operating entirely in the shadows of the mainstream tennis conversation. Every single time she walks onto the court, she brings a highly sophisticated structural problem that most elite coaches on the tour are failing to solve. She refuses to play the media game. She plays a cold and calculated game of athletic destruction. The stakes here are absolutely massive for the current landscape of the WTA. We are looking at a player who is actively dismantling the established order without asking for permission or media validation. When the cameras are looking the other way, she is taking out big names and leaving their experienced coaches scratching their heads in the locker room. The disconnect between her actual threat level and her mainstream media coverage is the single biggest mystery of the 2026 season. You have to wonder what it feels like to be a top-tier player facing her right now. You do your homework, you watch the standard tape, and you think you are prepared for a regular match against a young prospect. Then the match begins. Within the first 4 games, you suddenly realize the scouting report you read was fundamentally wrong. The ball refuses to do what it is supposed to do. The pacing is off. The geometry of the court feels totally warped. Eala is forcing elite athletes to play a version of tennis they have never practiced for. This is no accident or lucky streak. This is a deliberate, highly engineered takeover. The tennis world loves to celebrate loud arrivals and flashy personalities. Eala is doing something much more terrifying. She is quietly installing a brand new operating system into the WTA Tour, and the old guard lacks the vocabulary to describe what is happening to them. They are losing to a puzzle they cannot even see. Let us rewind for a second and look at how the tennis establishment usually operates. Whenever a new talent breaks through, there is a standard playbook. The media hypes them up, the sponsors rush in, and every sports network dedicates hours to breaking down their technique. We saw it with Goff. We saw it with Raducanu. But with Eala, the machine has completely stalled. It is almost as if the tennis media fails to categorize her success. She defies their simple narratives. She is far from loud, she avoids endless drama, and she breaks the typical mold of a European or American prodigy. So they just ignore the tactical brilliance of what she is actually doing. They reduce her to a regional success story. But if you look at the faces of her opponents after a grueling 2-hour match, you see the truth. You see pure exhaustion and utter confusion. They know they just faced something completely unorthodox. Every sport has its blind spots, but the WTA Tour is currently experiencing a collective delusion regarding Alex Eala. The data is screaming that she is a top-tier threat, yet the conversation remains completely muted. This is the exact environment where massive upsets happen. When you underestimate a player who possesses a world-class tactical mind, you pay for it on the scoreboard. Yala knows she is flying under the radar and she is using that invisibility as a tactical shield. If you are tired of the exact same recycled tennis storylines and you want to actually understand the hidden tactical shifts reshaping the tour before the mainstream media catches on, hit that subscribe button. We are building a community that looks past the PR and focuses on the pure, unadulterated mechanics of the game. Because what is happening right now on the actual tennis courts is completely contradicting every single official scouting report in the WTA. The deeper you look into her match data, the stranger things get. There is a bizarre pattern emerging in her gameplay. It is something so unusual that veteran analysts are struggling to explain it. And that is where this mystery truly begins. Let us look closely at the heat map of a recent match. According to every single standard logic of the WTA, Alex Eala should have been completely broken down by the middle of the second set. Her opponent was hitting harder, running faster, and dictating the baseline. But this is exactly where the matrix begins to glitch, and the true mystery reveals itself. She does not play tennis the way we are taught to watch it. We are conditioned to look for raw power and immediate winners. Eala operates on an entirely different tactical frequency. She employs a bizarre point-picking strategy that most observers completely miss. Instead of trying to win every single point with brute force, she treats a tennis match like a long game of physical chess. She will deliberately concede certain rallies. She will let a game go. But when the score reaches 30-all, her entire physical demeanor changes. She suddenly locks in and plays with a terrifying level of precision. She is baiting her opponents. She allows them to spend massive amounts of energy winning irrelevant points early in the set. Then she steals the points that actually alter the mathematical probability of the match. This creates a deeply unusual physical dynamic on the court. Notice the stamina distribution in her matches. Opponents usually win the first set looking like absolute world beaters. They are hitting clean winners and pumping their fists. Then the second set arrives. Suddenly, the opponent of Eala cannot seem to catch her breath. Why is a seasoned top 10 athlete suddenly gasping for air against a much younger player? Why do their legs suddenly look like they are made of concrete? The broadcast commentators will usually just say the opponent is having a bad day or losing focus. That is a complete tactical lie. The opponent is not losing focus. They are being systematically suffocated by an invisible weight. Right here on the screen, imagine a data chart comparing the average revolutions per minute on a forehand. We call this RPM. The standard top 30 WTA player hits a forehand with a very specific, manageable level of topspin. The ball travels fast and relatively flat. Now look at the RPM data for Alex Eala. The numbers shoot off the chart. The data simply does not make sense for someone of her physical build. The amount of rotation she is putting on the yellow fuzzy ball is violently high. Every time her opponent tries to hit that ball, they are not just dealing with forward velocity, they are dealing with a ball that feels like a heavy rock on the strings of their racket. Over the course of 30 minutes, returning that heavy ball drains the glycogen right out of the muscles of the opponent. They look exhausted because they literally are carrying the kinetic weight of the shots of Eala. It is no coincidence that veteran players keep falling into this exact same trap over and over again. They prepare for a standard match, and they end up in a brutal war of physical attrition. There is a deep secret buried in her mechanical structure. It is a specific type of tennis DNA that the American media is completely blind to. The truth is exactly this. Alex Eala is not playing the standard stereotypical brand of Asian tennis. What you are witnessing on the court is a clay court monster engineered with pure, unadulterated Spanish DNA. For decades, the Western tennis establishment has lazily grouped Asian players into a very specific tactical box. The stereotype dictates that they are flat hitters. They are supposed to be counterpunchers who stand glued to the baseline, absorbing pace and redirecting the ball. The media expects Eala to play exactly like that. They expect quick, flat strikes. But Eala completely shatters that mold. She is not a counterpuncher. She is a dictator of spin. She spent her formative developmental years absorbing the brutal philosophy of the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca. She did not just learn how to hit a tennis ball there. She learned the dark arts of Spanish clay court tennis. She learned how to weaponize topspin to create impossible angles and force the opponent behind the baseline. When she hits a forehand, she is using a biomechanical kinetic chain that is fundamentally Spanish. The racket head drops steeply, brushes violently up the back of the ball, and creates a trajectory that kicks viciously off the court surface. This is the ultimate revelation that nobody on television is talking about. She is bringing a heavy, bruising, masculine style of Spanish clay court tennis into a WTA landscape that is currently obsessed with flat, fast, first-strike tennis. The top players are completely disoriented because they have not faced this specific flavor of topspin in years. Did you actually know she possessed this level of Spanish tactical training before clicking on this video? This is the kind of hidden technical reality that completely reframes how we watch the sport. Drop down into the comments right now and tell me if this revelation changes your perspective on her potential this season. I read every single piece of technical analysis you guys leave down there, and I want to know if you see the Spanish influence in her swing now that I have pointed it out. Now, feel the sheer energy of what this looks like in real time. Picture the frantic baseline rallies. The ball kicks up high, forcing the opponent to hit from above their shoulder. Eala slides perfectly into the dirt, her movement smooth and devastating. The pace is absolutely relentless. She hooks a forehand cross-court that dips viciously out of the strike zone. The crowd gasps. The opponent lunges and hits the ball into the net, completely broken by the physics of the shot. This is not just a game of tennis anymore. This is a masterclass in kinetic violence. She is using the dirt, the spin, and the geometry of the court as weapons of mass destruction. She is not merely surviving out there against the elite guard. She is actively dismantling their entire game plan by forcing them to play on a vertical axis they are totally uncomfortable with. The heavy ball is the ultimate equalizer. It neutralizes power, it destroys timing, and it shatters confidence. And if you think this is merely a theoretical argument built on computer screens and wild assumptions, wait until you see the undeniable data. Because the real-world numbers we are about to look at absolutely refuse to lie. When you combine this Spanish DNA with the specific environment of the upcoming clay season, you get a statistical anomaly that will shock you. Let us talk about the exact numbers that the mainstream tennis media completely ignores. You simply cannot hide from pure statistics. The win rate of Alex Eala in matches that go to a deciding third set this year is not just remarkably high, it belongs in a completely exclusive category of its own. When a match crosses the 2-hour mark on the professional tour, physical breakdown is completely natural. The legs get heavy. The lungs burn. Most players start making desperate decisions to end the point early because they want to escape the pain. But we are looking at an astonishing conversion rate from Eala in these exact grueling moments. While other elite players are losing their legs and hitting flat balls into the net, Eala is actually amplifying the violence of her topspin. The heavy ball we talked about earlier works exactly like a slow-acting poison in the muscular system of her opponent. By the time the third set begins, the opponent has already swung their racket hundreds of times against an unnaturally heavy ball. Their shoulder is screaming in pain. Their footwork slows down by just a fraction of a second. And that tiny fraction of a second is all Eala needs to absolutely dictate the court geometry. She is physically breaking them down. She is turning elite athletes into exhausted amateurs. Now look at the official tournament entry list for the upcoming European clay court swing. This is where the truth becomes totally undeniable. The tournament directors for the biggest warm-up events before the French Open are highly intelligent people. They see the exact same data we're looking at right now. They know she is a massive box office draw for true tennis purists who actually understand the tactical game. For the first time in her career, she is being placed directly into the main draw of these massive premier tournaments. She does not have to grind her way through the brutal qualifying rounds anymore. Direct entry into a main draw without a high-seeded ranking is the ultimate silent respect from the tennis establishment. It is a highly coveted VIP pass reserved only for players with genuine fangs. They are giving her this direct entry because they know her Spanish clay court DNA makes her an immediate threat to win the entire event. The people running the sport know the absolute truth, even if the sports media refuses to broadcast it to the masses. You are still here watching this video, which means you care deeply about the actual truth of the sport. You look past the flashy headlines. So I am going to share a specific piece of insider information that you will not hear anywhere else on the internet. There is a very prominent head coach at one of the biggest high-performance tennis academies in Florida. He personally trains multiple top 20 American players. Behind closed doors just last week, he forced his entire coaching staff to completely rewrite their clay court practice regimens. Why did he make this drastic change? He specifically cited the RPM data of Alex Eala. He told his coaching staff that if their elite American players do not learn how to handle extreme shoulder height topspin immediately, Eala will completely embarrass them during the European clay swing. The American tennis establishment is secretly terrified of her trajectory. They are frantically changing their highly structured training blocks just to prepare for her unique ball strike. This insider reality perfectly answers the massive question we asked at the very beginning of this video. The silence of the media is not ignorance, it is intentional evasion. They are ignoring her because acknowledging her means admitting a very uncomfortable truth. It means admitting that the heavily funded American system is currently totally unprepared for the specific tactical nightmare she brings to the court. So the next time you turn on a major sports network broadcast and you hear absolute silence regarding Alex Eala, you know exactly what is going on behind the scenes. Do not ever think for a single second that she is not good enough to be mentioned alongside the top contenders. Understand the harsh reality of the situation. She is far too dangerous for them to comfortably analyze on live television. She completely shatters their neat, marketable narratives about how young women in tennis are supposed to play the game. She does not sell manufactured locker room drama or flashy social media controversies. She sells pure, unadulterated technical fear on the dirt. She is bringing a violent, calculated brand of tennis to the professional tour, and the establishment is desperately hoping she just goes away. But the data proves she is not going anywhere. We are standing on the very edge of a massive tactical shift in the sport. The French Open is rapidly approaching. The crushed red brick of Paris is the exact surface where her Spanish DNA becomes completely lethal. The heavy topspin will bounce even higher on that specific dirt. The brutal physical toll on her opponents will multiply exponentially in the Parisian heat. She is going to aggressively force the entire WTA Tour to fundamentally change how they view Southeast Asian tennis players. She is completely destroying the old stereotypes point by brutal point. The real question right now is how far this tactical disruption can actually go on the biggest stage in the world. Can this heavy Spanish topspin strictly engineered in Mallorca actually carry Alex Eala deep into the second week of the French Open? Are we about to witness one of the most shocking, unseeded championship runs in the long history of Roland Garros? We are meticulously tracking every single technical adjustment she makes as the main draw approaches. If you want to know exactly how her game translates to the Parisian clay before the rest of the world catches on, you need to be here for the next tactical breakdown. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the answer when the real tournament begins.